Welcome to the Ideal Spaces Working Group podcast.
This is an Ideal Spaces podcast featuring Dr. Ulrich Gehmann and Brent Rainham from Ideal Spaces with John Roberts about a relevant topic to be also dealt with in the workshop to come. May you introduce yourself, John?
Okay, so my name's John Roberts. I'm currently Professor of Sociology and Communications at Brunel University in London. One area of interest I have is to look at the changing nature of public space and its relationship to democracy and participation, particularly how some social and political movements have tried to push for greater free speech rights in public spaces in London. I've looked at that both historically and through a sort of more contemporary lens. So that's one area of interest. I'm also interested in some issues around digital culture and digital media as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Regarding the overall topic of our workshop, the relation between public space as place, citizenship, democracy, and this question of identity today, where you would see the, let's say, the major dangers inflicting in the end this point of identity, provided that the public place is helping to generate some identity, will foster citizenship, a feeling of belonging, and all this would be important for democracy.
Yeah.
Well, also when we look at this entire context, you would see the major dangers.
Okay, so if I start with the place I know best, which is the UK and London as well, there's been some interesting developments which sort of do relate directly to your question. So in the last few years, there's been certain acts that have been passed in the UK to give the police greater powers to regulate and to govern spaces of free speech in the UK. So in 2022, there was a new policing act that was passed. And this basically gave the police in the UK more powers to, to regulate protesters in public space. Now, it's a very controversial act because, so for example, one part of the act stipulates that the police can move on protesters if the police deem that the protesters are too noisy and if the noise is irritating other groups nearby. Now, the whole point of a protest is to be noisy and it's to be colourful. And so that's an interesting development. And it actually it's an interesting development because it actually, the issue of noise and protest and regulating protesters because they're too noisy stretches all the way back into British history, back to the 1860s. Now, in the 1860s, there were lots of protesters who tried to go into Hyde Park to gain the right of free expression in Hyde Park and in the what are called the Royal Parks of London. And the Home Secretary at the time used the issue of noise to ban the protesters, to say, you know, you're too noisy, you're causing a nuisance, you can't come into the parks. But the protesters at the time, especially in 1867, they thought, right, we're not having this, and they just bashed down the gates of Hyde Park and went in there, and to assert their right to free speech. So that was going on in the 1860s, and now arguably you see it today coming back, that this issue of noise and protest is being used to regulate the democratic rights of people to protest in public space. why these acts are important is that there's an external body called Article 19, and they look at issues of free expression around the world, and they rate countries on whether they adhere to certain dimensions of free expression. In their latest report, Article 19, in their latest report, they've downgraded the UK to the category of limited rights of free expression. And it's the first time ever. The top category is if a country is open. So the UK on this rating system by Article 19 has always been categorized as being fairly open. For the first time ever, Article 19 has downgraded the UK, to limited. Okay, has 4 categories. Open is the best category, and then it's limited, and the other category is something like, very limited and virtually non-existent. So when it comes to free expression, the UK has now been downgraded exactly because of these sorts of acts that have been passed. There's another a highly controversial act that was passed as well, that has banned an organization called Palestine Action, which is a campaign group for the rights of Palestinian people. But they were very active, and some of the activists actually went on to military bases in the UK and threw paint at airplanes they argued were going over to spy for Israel against the Palestinians. Now, this group has been deemed now a terrorist group. So anybody supporting Palestine Action will be arrested. And so what's happened, there's been about 2 or 3 protest events in the heart of London where people have been sitting in public spaces holding up a sign saying, I support this group. And the Metropolitan Police have had, literally dragging these people. And these protesters are often, elderly. Some of them are disabled. And they're obviously not anything to do with terrorist supporters. And in fact, there's other evidence, obviously, that the whole group isn't, obviously a terrorist group. It's involved in just civil rights campaigning, really. But again, people argue that it's this sort of action by the government which is curtailing, I guess, people's democratic rights of free expression. Plus, there's other external organisations like Article 19 who are saying, well, look, there's something going on in the UK now where, once cherished rights of free expression are somehow being degraded. So that's a long-winded way of saying, on that level alone, things have changed, and that's something that's ongoing at the moment in the UK about free speech, people's rights to go into public spaces, to get their voices heard, and the empowering of giving the police new powers to make judgments about whether people do have the right of free speech, in depending on what they're campaigning for or what the police judge to be acceptable limits. So that's one element.
And the other levels?
The other levels would be, it's something I think we've touched upon before when it comes to, in the UK, there's been a lot of selling off of public spaces to private entities. And of course that it erodes people's rights to the extent that there's more private surveillance of public spaces these days. And so more and more areas, what were once public spaces, are becoming more commercialized spaces. But the other interesting thing is that there are groups, local community groups in the UK and certainly in London, who are coming together to form sort of community groups, often community cooperatives, willing to push forward the idea of what some people have termed as not public-private partnerships, but public-common partnerships. this is where groups come together. They form a collective body.
Mm-hmm.
They put forward plans in order to regenerate an area, but for what they would call for the good of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And they will co-opt other organizations, maybe
Mm-hmm.
a transport organization on board, and local authorities.
Mm-hmm.
But the aim there is to work in a cooperative manner and to use finance, not for sort of speculation, but actually to try to, what they would call, democratically control that finance, to try and invest it for the good of the community. So that's an interesting development as well.
This is a very interesting development.
Yeah.
As regards this discussion of the cracks in the system. So what is possible inside an existing systemic environment?
Yeah.
Regarding new moves towards this positive out idea of the common goods and how we can achieve this.
No, that's right. I mean, do you must get some of these in? Do you get similar sort of movements in Germany?
Yeah, we have some movement in Germany. The interesting point would be also for our foundation in a longer term perspective, to provide or to offer a kind of platform that these kind of communities can exchange regularly.
Yes.
No? About their experiences, also in practical terms. No? So, as it is called in management, it's about critical success factors, means which factors have been fulfilled in order that an organization and the aims of these organizations are kept viable.
Yes. Okay.
Very simple. No?
Yes. Yeah.
And in terms of these critical success factors, it could be very interesting to provide a platform for some of these community approaches. No? This could be good.
No, very much so, because I think
it's a concrete change.
Yes. Yeah. Because I think in the past, when so the idea of communities coming together and working with others to sort of regenerate or regrow areas that have been maybe sort of left idle or underfunded, that's not particularly new. I mean, you know, even in the 1980s in the UK under Margaret Thatcher, there were elements of that. But often what critics have said is that although communities have been involved in a lot of regeneration schemes and redevelopment schemes, it has been led primarily by the private sector. So you have these, you know, this notion of public-private partnerships, but the emphasis has been too much on the private. And so while the public has been involved, so many regeneration schemes in the UK have to involve consultation and, you know, with community groups. But one criticism of those in the past has been, well, it's not real consultations. You know, these private groups had to, you know, private business, they're forced to consult with community groups, but then you know, the reality is often is that they just go ahead and, you know, do what they want to do, and
I can imagine
the community really, the final product, the community hasn't had a huge amount of input. So I think what's interesting is that due to those criticisms, there's been other, I guess, bottom-up approaches where people are a bit more wise to that, and you know, communities are sort of trying to, or some anyway, are trying to assert their voices more, and they do that by, like I say, forming their own partnership groups, which do operate almost in a business-like fashion, but the whole point of them, though, is to put what might be termed the common at the heart of the groups, and to make sure that there is, like I say, a sort of a sense of community ownership over what's going on, and you know, to when they develop their own sort of development plans for some sort of local community scheme, whether it's regenerating a marketplace or making new use of a vacant building, it's trying to show that a community-led approach is better than a private developer coming in to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. So yeah, there's some interesting things going on in that respect.
I mean, how do you see that layering into, let's say, the city 10 years from now, for instance?
Well, it's okay. It's so again, if you take the example of London, I think that, well, put it this way, I think at the moment it's rather open, and I think there's going to be a bit of a battle going on for the soul of many cities. So we've had successive governments in the UK who have always promised that they're going to build lots and lots of houses because there's a housing problem in the UK. There's not enough of them, and they're very expensive these days, like they are in many cities. Rents are sky high. So every government, including the current Labour government, always has these very ambitious housing targets. Now in London, there was an ambitious housing target, but it hasn't, anywhere near been met. And so I think there's panic within government ranks about this. So if you think about London, in the future, there's still probably going to be not enough houses, and rents, particularly in the city of London or in the centre of London, are still going to be sky high. I mean, it really is unaffordable. And I know this is the case around most major cities. And so I think that because of the affordability of London, people will probably start moving out. People moved into London in the 80s when there's lots of redevelopments going on under the period of Margaret Thatcher. I think people will start moving more and more out into the suburbs. However, I think there's lots of communities in London that are very mixed, where people do rub along, and you see, like I say, some examples of people trying to come together to do projects, but I mean, I suppose sometimes I'm on the half glass empty side, because there's so much that needs to be done, I think, in cities. And as long as this, I know we've spoken about it in depth before, as long as this more neoliberal agenda and austerity agenda is prevalent, which it certainly is in the UK, there's always going to be limits. And I think people have had enough of that agenda. All the opinion polls show, they want public utilities back in the public's, to be publicly owned. They don't want them to be in the private sector. But governments aren't willing to do that, at the moment. So I think the battle is going to be for cities is going to be on that sort of level of groups, continuously campaigning against the privatization agenda and austerity agenda versus the government and also local governments still pushing it forward. Well, certainly national governments. In London, you have got the mayor, Sadiq Khan, who often makes statements that are contrary sometimes, even though he's in the Labour Party, will make statements contrary to the national government. And he's, has certain amounts of power. So you might see conflicts between, local governments, mayors, and the national government. But in 10 years' time, I don't think you're going to see much more than you're seeing at the moment, because neoliberalism and austerity is so embedded in national governments. I think London will look a lot like it is at the moment, unless you get some sort of radical government who doesn't want to do neoliberalism at all, or austerity.
But this is not very realistic.
No, not. I don't think. Well, saying that, you have a more assertive Green Party in the UK that's got a new leader who's very much on the left. And they're winning a lot of popular support at the moment. They've got about 4 or 5 MPs. But then on the other side, you've got the Reform Party, headed by somebody called Nigel Farage, who's very much on the right, far right. And he's winning lots of support. And that's the other thing, when you try to say in 10 years' time, it's a very uncertain period in British politics. And it is hard to predict. It's a very uncertain, unstable period where the mainstream parties are just losing support now, left, right and centre. Whether that will translate in the next election, which is still 4 years away, to support for Nigel Farage, or support for the Green Party, or support for a new, party headed by somebody like Jeremy Corbyn, who knows? I mean, it is really uncertain.
This is one of the
No, I was going to say, but the other really interesting thing, I was reading this morning in the paper that in America, they had, I don't know, millions of people protesting in the streets. It was
5 to 7 million.
Against Trump. So you have somebody like Trump in power, but now people are starting to really assert themselves and going again into public spaces. Even though I know we were speaking about this yesterday, you've got Trump with a militarization of space, actually putting the military in certain spaces. People are coming out now, a bit like the UK, to protest against these issues. So that's something that's very interesting. I think that will continue in America. Maybe it's the start of a new movement of protest in places like America. I mean, certainly we're getting it in the UK as well.
Yeah, we're in a period of transition everywhere, right? So,
yes, exactly. That's why it's quite hard to predict in the next 10 years.
This is clear, but what you mentioned, that in terms of transition, when a new evolutionary force is coming up, it's not the forces that existed so far, the forces against the upheavals of transition, either right wing or left wing. No, it could be a new force, and this new force could be related to this community approach. No? It's no longer a matter of a certain political party. It's a matter of a certain way of life, and it has to be pronounced against resistance from the regime. No?
Yes,
This could be an interesting point. Could be.
It could be. Yeah, I mean, there has been lots and lots of encouragement from governments, certainly in the UK, for communities to be more involved. So there's a concept of social capital that came about 20 plus years ago. The idea that you have to build bridges amongst a whole variety of people in a community. The idea that if somebody helps you out, you will help them out, or it's the knowledge that you come together in festivals and events and that sort of community building. So that's been around for years, and the Labour Party are going back to that term of social capital. There's a new plan that's just come out about regenerating communities. It was only released the other day by the Labour Party, and they actually explicitly talk about social capital building, building networks of reciprocity and trust. Social capital is all about building levels of trust between different community members, across social classes, across ethnicities, across private business, local government, voluntary organisations. But that has been around for many years, social capital. It then went out of favour a bit. A decade ago, you didn't hear much about it. It's really a term that came about in the late 1990s into the early 2000s, but it seems to be making a comeback now. Basically, I think because, certainly in the UK, the Labour government is thinking, what can we do? in these communities to try and regenerate them,
Yeah.
to try and get people together again. So there's always been encouragement for community empowerment, but I think it, like I said earlier, it got sort of caught up more with sort of commercialized interests.
And this is very interesting as regards one of the major topics of our workshops. It's about, when we're speaking about citizenship and place and belonging, it's about ethos. Not the Greek would have said ethos.
Yeah.
It's a certain mindset plus practical action when I'm related to a place and helping other people.
Yes, that's right.
This very place, ethos. No?
Yeah.
And this relates to the social capital movement you described.
Yeah.
Okay, for now, so we should continue this discussion also in a wider frame after our workshop.
Yeah.
Now we have to.
We want to thank John Roberts.
Thank you
for your time, John.
No, that's fine. No, thanks for inviting me.
And
thanks.
Yeah.
And we will continue with this.
Yes.
This community approach is very important for our places.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Platform creating idea for this kind of communities.
Yes.
Okay. We finish now.
Okay.
Many thanks.
Yeah. No, thanks.
yeah, John, very good. That was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, sorry, I was waffling a bit there.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Edit out the waffles. It might only be 1 minute though.
Like a good one.
Yeah. Yes. No, that's right. Yeah. But it was the No Kings protest. That's what it was called.
No Kings.
Yeah.
It's based on a very old concept from the United States when the English government
Oh, that's what it
was
is.
trying
Is
to
it? Right.
in the 1800s.
Okay.
They basically